Does anyone know how many students we're waiting on? About? Ron? No? Okay, no worries. We can get started maybe in like a minute. I think we're waiting on possibly 20. All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Jade Pearson, one of the Associate Directors of Career Development and Industry Engagement. I'm here along with my partner in crime, Ron, and we'll kind of, he'll introduce himself in the next slide. So today, our topic is HealthBeats, which is the health professions overview. So we have a lot to share with you all today. Our agenda today is we'll do staff introductions. We'll ask you all students to introduce yourself in the chat. We will then go over HealthBeat and give a general overview of the services we offer. We'll talk about some resources, and we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. Ron, if you want to jump us off with your introduction, I'll go second.
Of course. All right. So real quick, this is us. So HealthBeat is Jade and myself. Again, my name is Ron Reyes, pronouns he, him. I'm one of two, and I have a background within higher education, been around for probably about 15 years now, and had various hats between admissions and operations. I've also done health advisement, health education, programming. And so I'm very excited to talk about health professions with everyone.
Great, thanks, Ron. Yeah, so just a little bit more about myself. I've been in higher ed, working in higher ed for about 5 years now. I was a career coach. I've done outreach, academic advising. So I was a UC grad. My major was neuroscience. So I feel a very special connection to my STEM peeps. I know how difficult it can be. And then, yeah, so I got my master's last year. So it's been really a great journey talking about grad school. So I really feel for my students in their application process and just being undergrad. So with that, I want everyone who is here to please put in the chat your name, your pronouns, and mine are she, her, by the way. Please give us your college and any career interests you might have. And I'm just gonna make sure everyone is muted on the call.
Don't be afraid, guys. It's just a chat box. Come on.
It would also be lovely if you guys could have your cameras on. We would love to see you. Thank you, Helena, Jared. Ooh, physical therapy. Nice. MD, PhD, dual degree. That's awesome. Darlene, medical school. Oh, nice. Rheumatology, very specific.
I've known 2 doctors in rheumatology. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I would, yeah. Nursing, awesome. Medical school or nursing. And it's okay if you don't know exactly what, you're interested in. You might have more than one, and that's totally fine. That's what Ron and I are here for. Oh, general surgery, great. All right, so as you guys keep that in the chat, it's great to know our audience. We'll go ahead and move on to what is HealthBeat. So HealthBeat is our centralized pre-health advising and resource center on campus. Ron and I wear many different hats. We do advising, program planning, career consulting. We help you with your med school timeline, which we'll go over in a few. But we really, Ron and I just do it all. And we help you all with any questions that you might have with regard to med school or any grad school program within the health sciences. Some of our partnerships include HMP3, Health and Medical Professions Preparation Program. That is a student-run org that we advise and we kind of oversee in some ways. We also have a partnership with UCSD School of Medicine. So any updates that we get from them, anything important that we feel that you all should know, we're meeting with them, we're getting those updates because we know a lot of students end up going to UCSD School of Medicine that graduate here as an undergrad. We also have a partnership with the SCAG School of Pharmacy. In a very similar sense, we help them with programming. We do some workshops for them. We communicate with their students. So we are very involved with those too. We also have partnerships with the Departments of Biology, Chem, Psych, Public Health, Human Development, and Global Health, as well as the different colleges such as Revelle, Muir, et cetera. We actually meet with the advisors. We make sure that we're all on the same page and stay up to date. So we are advising our students the best way possible. So our students are successful in getting into the program of their choice with up-to-date information. Last but not least, we oversee and sometimes advise and partner with, it just depends on the student org, but pre-health student orgs. For example, the Black Pre-Med, their new program, BPMS, acronyms. So that's something that's one of the clubs that I'm overseeing and advising, as well as the TNT, which is for transfers and non-traditional students. Ron also helps with that. Ron oversees the LGBTQ center, and so helps with those students there and helps with programming, as well as other student orgs. Ron, I know if you wanted to jump in, you're kind of sharing next.
We have a ton.
A ton.
So yeah, we have a lot. So like, for example, I'll be meeting with HMP3, which is one of the largest student orgs on campus. There's also BUMP, which is for biology, as well as PUMP, which is for pharmacy. So we have a whole bunch of acronyms I'm not going to inundate you guys with, but just note that there is going to be a lot of information today, and part of that is, where can you find this information? Well, we try and curate a lot of the information between recommendations on different student orgs you might want to consider, all the way to how to approach and think about health professions. So if you don't know where to start, the easiest thing to do is check out our website. We are actually part of and housed under the Career Center, but you can access this directly through healthbeat.ucsd.edu. And really what we've tried to do here at HealthBeat is take some of the most popular areas of profession and give you resources that have been organized. And it's kind of an ongoing process for us to get updates from, again, our different campus partners, student organizations, alumni, as well as industry and the different application systems. So we try and make it a one-stop shop to get a strong overview of all the various resources students can have. And of course, worst case scenario, just schedule an appointment with us once you have access. So I just want to make sure that people are aware that we do have a site where a lot of frequently asked questions get answered, as well as basic planning, timeline, you name it. So with that, how can we help? Again, we are a health professions program. So what we do is we do professional career exploration within the different areas. If you like the healthcare field, but you have no clue, that's okay. That's what we're here for. Exploration, understanding. What is it do I really like about the healthcare field? Are there particular things lifestyle-wise I want to maintain? You know, how much am I invested in certain aspects about the field? Those are important questions to ask. So healthcare exploration is at the foremost, I would say, for a lot of students starting out, and it's something that we strongly recommend. That way you know that you have more than just one career path option. We talk about planning and strategizing from not only exploration, but all the way to looking at schools, planning out your academics to a degree, as well as application process. So there's an entire plan and strategy around how do you tackle health professions, and that's something that we do. And besides that, as usual, we try and provide as many resources on how to think about approach and talk about your experiences and ways to strengthen your graduate school application if you do end up moving forward with health professions. So those are just a snippet or an overview of what we try and do with HealthBeat. And then I'll hand it over to Jade for some frequently asked questions.
Yeah, so what should I major in is one of the questions I frequently get from students, Ron and I both. And so really what I tell students is you should major in what interests you. More than likely, more students than not will major in something that they're interested in. Sometimes it is bio or human bio. Sometimes it's global health. Sometimes it's psychology. Sometimes it's engineering. I've seen it all. Okay, so what matters is really taking the prerequisites for the program that you want to go to. And so that's what we help you with. The major should be something that you feel you would do really well in, something that you would excel in, and something that you're interested in, right? And from there, you will have space with electives to build in those prerequisites as you see fit for the program that you want to go to for the grad school program. Minors are optional. Honestly, I would say be strategic in your minor as far as your long-term career goals. So if you see yourself maybe in medical device sales, maybe you want to go into tech or industry, consider minoring in something that's relevant. Maybe think of engineering. Maybe you want to work in a hospital setting, but do more admin work. Maybe you really are interested in bio, possibly major in public health. There are options, but it's something that should complement your long-term goals. And when I'm talking with students, I really talk to them about what are your long-term goals, and we work our way backwards. And eventually, yes, we will get to a major, but I want to know what you want to do as a career, right? And what are your interests, and what are your strengths? What are your talents? What can you excel in? Because at the end of the day, your grades is what's going to matter. Hear me, y'all. Your grades matter more than your major. Okay. I know a lot of students who are stuck on, I should do this major. No, you should do these prerequisites no matter what major you're in. And make sure you get your A's and your B's. We recommend trying to stay above a 3.73. That's around the national average overall. So again, major with something that you're great in.
Perfect.
And then as far as AP IB credit, which is international, IB is if you were an international student and have credits from that bachelor's degree program. So we do get a lot of questions, usually more so for AP. We do have a chart for course exemptions for individual colleges. That's where you'll really want to talk to your academic advisor and make sure that you're getting credit for these AP courses. On our end, we will let you know that AP courses generally do count towards med school. That's a huge question, especially in California. Yes, they do. Now, we do have a list, and maybe I can find it towards the end, of all the different programs in the nation and if they accept AP credit for a class or not. You will be surprised to see how many do accept AP credit for some of those courses, such as chemistry, bio. I know many people do bio so they can skip their build series here. So again, this is about being strategic and understanding which program you want to go to long-term. In the future, you should probably start compiling a list sooner than later, just a kind of a more general extensive list to see, okay, which courses you need to take in the long-term. You don't want to be surprised if you don't plan ahead, if that makes sense. So no sudden surprises. You can see your degree audit and Triton link, which you should have access to once you're a student, to be able to just log in and just see which grades you get, what you got credit for, et cetera. Ron and I do not have access to your grades. So that's one thing I want to tell you. So, you know, you can come ready to show us, you know, a PDF or a screenshot or whatever, but we don't have access. So you have to be prepared for that. Of course, there are certain courses that you cannot take based on your AP credit or IB credit. That just means that you've got credit for it. And you'll want to take, what we recommend is, say you took lower division bio, right? So the build series as AP credit. We advise you to take upper division coursework in that subject area. So for example, in anatomy, physiology, and do well. Because yes, med schools do accept AP credit, but they want to see that you can do well in these rigorous courses at your UC institution here at UCSD. So we advise you, don't retake that class. Please don't do that to yourself. But please do well in the upper division coursework, such as anatomy, physiology, biochem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, please speak to your college or major academic advisors to discuss your options as far as the class, what you got credit for. And then we, as HealthBeat professionals or advisors, we help you kind of connect the dots with what you get credit for. So you should already know that based on your academic advising appointment, and how that transfers over to particular med schools that you want, or you know, pre-health programs, or grad programs. Sorry, I don't want to get stuck on medicine. Medicine is just the largest population that we serve. But I know we have nursing, we have PA, we have PT, et cetera. We want to try and connect you to those programs. We'll send, I believe Ron and I will be able to send out a PDF version of this with like links and stuff. So I'll be putting some in the chat, but yes, you can check your course prerequisite requirements as well. So just make sure you're up to date on that.
Yep. All right. So just in case anybody needs to get this defined, what are prerequisites? Prerequisites are simply the required courses for whatever profession you are targeting within healthcare professions. So prerequisite coursework, it will be very similar across multiple professions, but they do have nuances and differences depending on what the health profession is. So just to give you a very basic breakdown, so for MD and DO general planning, this information, I'm putting it on the slide, but extensive detailed versions of this information with course content is on HealthBeats. So don't feel like you have to take crazy notes for this. I just want to go over the concept so everybody has an idea of what they're looking at. So for MDDO, for example, 1 year bio, 1 year gen chem, 1 year organic chem, calculus and statistics, physics, biochem, English. It's a lot. Most students, if they are in a bio major or a major that traditionally helps with those prerequisites, might not even need to worry about if they're going to get these done. If you're not in a traditional major that is more science focused, like say, for example, shout out to my psychology people, we might need to work with you and your academic advisor a little bit more just to make sure you're getting the necessary courses completed. Some other things to take into consideration or to think about, not all health professions are going to need something as crazy as MD and DO. The MD and DO tend to be some of the most intensive course requirements. Other health professions such as nursing might not need physics, for example, or might not require organic chemistry. And instead they're going to say, did you take micro, physiology, human anatomy, sociology, psychology, right? These are things that we will explore with you guys, but it's good just to know when we're talking about prerequisites, we're not just talking about a general list of courses. We're really talking about whatever is the target requirement courses for that health profession you're targeting. And again, if you're not sure, we can also come together with a cross list of maybe 2 or 3 different professions that usually have a lot in common with each other. So I just wanted to help define that and give you a general overview because I find it very helpful when students are thinking about, okay, if I'm pursuing this area, what are some things I can immediately start working on to help me pursue those professions? So I always say when it comes to planning, plan around your professional and academic goals. So if you have even the basic target goal of what you're doing, think about it as, okay, if I'm going to go into healthcare careers, what are the healthcare careers am I interested in? All right, so if I say, okay, let me just look at MDs, physician assistants, and nursing. All right, so if I know those are my areas, I can look at those prerequisites and say, if I'm just interested in those areas, can I execute on getting these requirements completed? If so, great. Start thinking about how can you fit them into your schedule, right? So I always say you want to be cognizant of the things that you're interested in. That way you can explore, and sometimes classes that you take for these professions really help define whether or not you're okay with that content and either need more additional time to study to do that profession, or if you don't like it at all and you want to run the other way, that might be an indicator that you might want to do a different profession if the core content of that profession is something that doesn't interest you. So it's a good way to help you plan and think about your goals when you're in school. All right, Jade.
Definitely. As far as the courses in planning, so what should that look like? As a full-time student, you should be at least 12 units. If you have a more rigorous major, you know, and you want to graduate within that 4-year time span, you want to aim for that 16 units. You don't want to, here's the thing, you don't want to do too much, but you also don't want to do too little. Now, going back to the whole major thing, the caveat here is admissions panel will look at the rigor of the courses that you took together. The prerequisites themselves are rigorous. Biochem, OChem, anatomy and physiology were the hardest classes I've ever taken personally. So OChem, so you'll prove yourself by taking some of these courses together, right? But on the same token, you want to be able to balance that with the load of activities and extracurriculars because it's really 50-50. You can have a 4.0 GPA, but have scarce extracurriculars and not get into med school because they care about your clinical experience. They want to see that you have that hands-on professional experience, what we call transferable skills, right? So you'll want to balance that. Just to give you a little formula, for every unit in class you have, that's how many hours you're spending per week. So if you have a 3-unit class, or we'll say 4-unit class, so that's more so quarter system, 4 hours per week is what you're doing. Now, with that being said, you should spend 1 to 2 hours outside of each course studying. So if you have 12 units on your load, you should be spending an additional 12 to 24 hours outside of that studying. So say you do 2 hours, 24 hours plus 12 is about 36 hours. That's almost a full work week, right? It's 40 hours. So yes, it is, can feel a little bit heavy, but it's definitely doable. Many students do that, especially if you're really efficient in your study habits. And again, lighter loads are okay. That's why I went with that 12-unit example. Lighter loads are okay with extracurriculars because they want to see that you are well-rounded. You should have about, and we'll go over experiences, you should have about 11 or so experiences altogether, which leads me into the next slide. What are experiences or extracurriculars? These are some of the most popular ones. I'm sure this is not by any means an exhaustive list, but these are the ones that we see very commonly and are the most popular. So that includes clinical experience, and really it's important to get that clinical or healthcare experience kind of early on. We actually, in our 4-year timeline, which we will be able to link as well, I'll link it after this, we tell you during your freshman year, like your summer going into your sophomore year rather, you should really start to have that clinical experience or some sort of experience that gives you, whether that's research or service or leadership. Really, clinical experience is probably the one that you want to start with, because if you're not, especially if you're not sure, you want to get in there as soon as possible and see what you like and what you don't like about that profession. You want to rule it out or rule it in. Again, these all experiences, as I said, give you transferable skills, technical skills, soft skills. What are soft skills, right? Soft skills are the skills that get you liked by people, because you don't work in a bubble, right? You don't live in a bubble. You want people to want to work with you. So communication, right? Time management, self-confidence, follow through. There's so many. I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list, but all of these experiences help you become a well-rounded person, and they are extremely important, right? When you go up to these admissions panels, when you're applying to your grad school program, they're not going to see you as a robot. They want to see you as a person. They want to see what you bring to the table overall and not just your grades or your major, okay? So we coach you and advise you on the types of experiences. We try to see you as an individual and really say, okay, well, you've done this. Let's balance it out with this, right? Again, these are some of the main ones. I know a lot of people say, oh, what about research? And we'll go over that in a second. But yeah, these are all. And if anyone can think of anything else, feel free to put it in the chat or save a question for later. If you're unsure if an experience counts, we can definitely answer that question for you too.
All right. So I get this question a lot, which is, so what's service versus clinical experience? So service is direct, meaningful interaction that aims to fulfill a need of a vulnerable community. So what essentially that means is if there's communities that have been either socioeconomically impacted or historically marginalized communities that need additional assistance because of systemic systems. Those are communities that need additional help, and you are providing service to them. So if you're thinking very broadly, that is one way to define service. So one good way of thinking about it is some of the listings that we have there, like working with refugees, homeless, low-income families, historically marginalized communities. At UCSD, we have a ton of student organizations that can help you out with service, actually. I've only listed 3. There are a ton more than that. So I always say, find the things that you're passionate about, find the communities you want to help out. If you have an interest, there's probably a group out there, look for them. But to give you just a few of the groups, and I'm going to go through this a little quickly. So for example, we have Education Corps, which serves as tutoring and mentorship for high school for schools, or actually it can go up to K through 12. So that's a great one if you are interested in working with younger populations. Homeless Heal is one of the organizations that helps with providing food and support to the homeless in San Diego. Mustard Seed Project, I'm blanking out right now, but is another, actually, no, now I remember. It's also another homeless population service-oriented organization. So again, these are just a small cluster of service-based experience. But I've also told students, if you're interested in women's health, Planned Parenthood is a champion of women's health, and based off of current events, I think it's an area that needs additional support right now. So, if there are things that you're passionate about when it comes to service, this is how I would approach thinking about it. Now, when we talk clinical, there is sometimes some overlap between clinical and service-based experiences, and that deals with who are you doing direct patient care with. If it also happens to be with a nonprofit or a health organization that services these populations, then it might count as both. But in general, clinical experience doesn't have to target those populations. Now, what if you are volunteering for a geriatric facility? Yes, that's a little bit of service, but it might actually be more patient-based because you're having direct patient interaction with an older population that needs support on a long-term basis. Some other examples of how you can think about clinical experience is ENT, CNA, phlebotomy, medical scribing, medical assistant. You can consider shadowing, but a lot of times it will not be viewed as clinical experience because you are not getting the direct patient interaction that they would rather see with your experiences. So that is something that I do put a caveat out there for when thinking about how do you look at the experiences that you're getting. So quick highlight on some of our some of our organizations. We have EMS, which is Emergency Medical Services. It's a CPR certification program, and that's at UCSD. We have Flying Sams, which is short for Flying Samaritans. I know it sounds really funny, but they operate on a free clinic, actually 2 free clinics, so Ensenada and Tijuana. So it's a great opportunity for students who want to go across the border to provide clinical-based support to communities. There's also the International Health Collective, as well as Global Health Bridges. So, and both of those are focused on global opportunities to get health and clinical experience. So again, not exhaustive. This is a very quick overview, but to give you some ideas of where you can get some of these types of experiences that are important. Another question that we typically get asked is, do I need research? Only if it interests you is our response normally. And that's because research isn't actually required for a lot of the health professions and even for a lot of medical schools. It can be beneficial. It can give you a lot of opportunities, but you want to weigh that out versus the other opportunities and experiences that you're trying to get access to. So, for example, what research can give you is exposure to other areas and studies within science. It gives you opportunities to network with other people who are pursuing very rigorous areas within science. And it also can generate potential letters of recommendation if you work with a PI or primary investigator within research. But don't feel that you have to jump into research right away as a critical experience, because many times they'll actually want you to do good first in your classes before even getting into research opportunities. So I always tell students, find things that you're interested in with research. Understand it is not a hardline requirement, simply an additional benefit. It's like a cherry on top. It is not the sundae, right? So you want to make sure to think about some of these experiences that way. All right.
Okay, so the next part is finding mentors and building relationships. One thing that we advise our students to do, and if you look at that 4-year timeline, we actually kind of divide it up into your academics, your professional prep, and your med school prep. So this is really your professional prep, and along with some of those skills and experiential opportunities that we talked about. But you will need a referral or letter of recommendation when you apply to your grad program. That can be a limiting step for many students who maybe feel shy or they didn't understand the importance of talking with a professor or networking. It is extremely important. So for med school, you need like 4 to 6 letters, right? For PA, I think it's like 3 letters, 2 or 3 letters. PT, something very similar. Nursing, you may need letters of rec. So this is something that applies across the board. So we do have a link to Coffee and Dine with a Professor. We've historically done that. I believe this is linked. Oh, yes, it is linked. So you can basically join that program to get coffee or dine with a professor that are part of this program, to basically meet them, talk with them, ask questions, and network, right? Or you can go to office hours to communicate with those professors that intrigue you, or maybe you've done some research on their research, right? So you can ask them about their research and maybe even join in on their lab to kind of get that experience. And also, again, as Ron mentioned, you can possibly get a letter from that person or the person who leads the research, the supervisor. You can also become a TA or an instructional assistant in order to assist the professor, build those relationships, grade papers. You'll again learn so many different soft skills and transferable skills as a leader, right? You can also take smaller classes, which is great because, especially in discussions, I know that's more of a TA, but you can still get a letter from a TA, but you still will need a letter from a professor, right? So smaller classes are typically more in your upper division coursework versus like lower division. They're kind of big in like in larger lecture halls. But if you can take a smaller class, do that. If not, take multiple classes from the same professor. More often than not, they're going to be instructing more than one course. So when they see your face sitting in that front row of that 300, 400 student lecture hall more than once, they're gonna remember you, especially if you're going to office hours, right? They're gonna remember your face. If you're building rapport with them, meaning you're building a relationship with them, you're asking them questions, you're telling them about, what your goals and aspirations are. It can be a very natural conversation with the professor in question. Participate in class, raise your hand. And last but not least, join an affinity group. So many affinity groups actually have built-in peer mentorship plan or mentorship programs within the group. So it's kind of like paying it forward. And as you grow in that program, you can pay it forward to the people who are, maybe you become a junior and the new incoming freshmen, right? You can pay it forward and give them mentorship. And so again, not only are you gaining information from someone who has more experience than you, but later on you can use those soft skills and develop relationships with the students that you're advising, as well as just putting those on your application, you know, advising, putting that on your application looks really well or really good. So these are all different ways to build relationships and find mentors. We also will talk about a website where you can find mentors in your field of interest. And then as far as actual examples, what can I do starting out? We want you to create a personal plan. So whether that is journaling or creating a Excel sheet with your plan, feel free to do that. Whether you want to talk about, you want to list what major you're taking, if you're going to take any minors, what experiences are you going to look for, what certifications are you going to look for, right? You do need that CPR, BLS certification for most grad school programs, so plan to do that. There are many pieces, and you can talk with Ron and I to help you create your personal plan. Again, join a student org. That is a networking opportunity. You're just going to hear about so many pieces of advice. You're going to hear about different opportunities. I know like some student orgs will bring in healthcare professionals to talk with the students. That's a networking opportunity, right? So it's just so important. I cannot stress the importance of joining a student org or becoming involved in networking. Please, an easy way to stay in the loop is following our Facebook and Instagram page. I believe we'll have a link for you guys in a second, but that is where we post a lot of opportunities for students, internships, workshops, anything like, say, if we have a voucher for free for like 50% off an MCAT, maybe we'll post it on there. Like we've had that in the past. So just follow and stay in the loop on our social media, because we do try and stay up to date in our posts. Look for summer opportunities. The reason we say summer opportunities is because you'll have more time generally to get that healthcare experience, get that service experience, and that research experience. There's oftentimes research experiences offered throughout the year, but like specifically in the summer. I've had students even go back home, like back to Stanford and do research there. All of that counts. It does not need to be at UCSD. Your healthcare or service experience does not need to be affiliated with UCSD. Obviously, it's a great idea because you can network with potential alumni in the future, but it doesn't matter as long as you get that opportunity under your belt. That's what matters. You want to self-reflect and identify your why. I ask students, why are you going? Why do you want to go to med school? Why do you want to become a PA? And I want to hear something that's compelling. Of course, helping people is kind of the general theme that we see, right? But why do you want to help you? What kind of people? Do you want to work with underserved communities, the local communities? Do you want to work with rural populations? Do you want to advance the field in technology? Whatever that is, it needs to be a compelling reason. And we try to coach you all on that as well, because when you're in that admissions panel or sitting in that admissions panel interview or on your personal statement, they're going to be reading these things and they're going to be drawing a picture of you as a person based on your why. It's always missions based and it cannot be vague or general, okay? And then last but not least, start learning about healthcare. We have a link, Exploring Healthcare Careers. One thing I want to say is, reflect on also who you are as a person, your strengths, your abilities, your interests. And we can help you with that. Ron and I can talk with you about that and how that actually fits into the world of work, because you don't want to kind of like pick and choose kind of based on maybe what you've heard or what you think you like. Obviously, you want to try it if you think you like it, but you want to do a little bit more deep work within, more self-reflection within, to understand how do you connect with that function within that job, because that is very important. You want to have some sort of fulfillment if you're doing this 2/3 of your life, maybe even more if you're a doctor, right? So it's important to match who you are to your profession. And last but not least, we do want you to also focus on your academics. I know it's a lot that we want you to focus on. That's why we're here to support, okay? But all of these things that we're covering are equally important. So your academics are important. Get tutoring if you need other support. Get involved on campus, and get that healthcare clinical service leadership experience.
All right. So final tips to kind of help you organize everything, because I like organization. So as Jay just mentioned, focus on academics. How you start can many times determine how much the rest of your time here at UCSD is going to be spent. So if you don't take enough time to really get what you need squared away early in your academics, it makes tackling other opportunities a little bit more difficult the farther along you get in your education. So we always want to say right out the gate, make sure you're taking the time to perform where you need to be successful, to get help. Make sure that, school comes first, but immediately after that is all the other activities and areas that you can do to be a multifaceted, diverse applicant for purposes of applying to these health professions. So with that in mind, utilize your resources, ask questions. If you have no clue, it is okay. We are here to help with that. Email us, send messages via Handshake, schedule appointments with the Career Center, find your mentors and your groups. So utilize all these resources, right? And then timeline is really everything. I want to preface with timeline, don't feel like once you have a timeline, you have to commit to that hell or high water. That is not what we mean by timeline. What we mean is have an idea of everything that you hope to achieve and accomplish while you're here, and give yourself checkpoints to see how you're doing with those areas. So having a timeline with checkpoints lets you know, do I need more time? Am I getting all the things I want to do accomplished? Am I finding the experiences I want to have before doing this profession? Do I need to spend more time on the MCAT? Those are all very important questions and things you need to take into consideration. And it's hard to get an accurate gauge of how you're doing that unless you have an initial timeline with ways to check in and get a temperature check on how you're doing with these different areas. So timeline is very helpful in making sure that you stay aware of how prepared you are and when you're actually going to be ready, right? And then again, you've probably heard this more than once now, find mentors and build relationships. Critical component. You do not exist in a bubble. UCSD is practically its own town, people. We're huge. So you're not alone, trust me. Find other people, network, build these relationships. There are a lot of students doing the same thing, and it's not a competition with each other. It's really find people with like interests so that you can encourage each other to tackle these things together, as well as find things that you're interested in to keep you motivated, right? So those are some big tips. Other ways to connect and find those relationships. As the Career Center, we are going to plug Triton Connect. It is a platform specifically for UCSD students, alumni, faculty, and staff. So if you have anxiety about reaching out to a professional in an area of healthcare you are interested in, guess what? Anybody that is listed on there should have a relatively positive response just by you asking for help. And that's because the intention of this particular service and website is really to just say, these are alumni and faculty and staff. If they are doing things that you're interested in, all you have to say is, hi, I'm a UCSD student. I like what you're doing. Can I talk with you? That's it. So I like to put it out there for everybody just to think about that. There are different ways to build relationships and find these access points for you. So with that, we can head over to questions. Because I know we do have some limited time, but I want to make sure that if you guys have any pressing academic or otherwise type of questions, we can do that. And Jade, if you don't mind, I'm going to stop share so we can just see. And if people want to raise hands or do anything else, let us know what kind of questions you have, or if there are any areas, whether in chat you want to post, just let us know if there's things that you're curious about or need help with.
Yeah, and there's no bad or dumb questions. I know there can be some confusion around applying to grad school. There's so many different nuances. So please feel free, either type in the chat or unmute yourself.
Don't be shy.
Hey guys, I just had a quick question. First, just want to say thank you so much. That was great advice and really enjoyed the presentation. But I just was wondering when advising would start for the next quarter coming up.
Ideally, if you haven't done orientation yet, get through orientation. We want to make sure you are officially onboarded by UCSD so that all of those questions are accounted for. And traditionally speaking, right at the start of the quarter, first week starting up, you can go ahead, make sure your Handshake account is fully set up. So that you can then schedule appointments in the quarter. We do appointments year round. So once you're in as a UCSD student, it's full throttle. You are more than welcome to set up appointments one-on-one, and we can kind of get into particulars. I will give the disclaimer before you set up an appointment. We will be doing programming at the beginning of fall to answer a lot of frequently asked questions. So keep an eye out for that. Make a Handshake account, follow our Facebook. We will be putting out dates and times as soon as we get approval so that people can go to these open kind of forum orientations to help you as well.
And then we have a student with a question, can I go into the nursing field while majoring in public health? And the answer is yes, you can. What matters the most for nursing is the prerequisites, as well as I would say getting some clinical experience. Just to see if that's something that you really want to do. And depending on the program, they're going to have different requirements. So my piece of advice is to know or have an idea rather of where you want to go, what their requirements are. I would even research the schools such as like their NCLEX pass rates to see how successful their students actually are. And Ron and I, we can meet with you and help you with that as well. And then go from there. But again, whatever you feel passionate about, if public health is something that you enjoy, definitely do that. Actually, many of the courses will overlap. You will have to take those core science courses. You will have to do like a communications course, usually a psych course, maybe a social course, anatomy, physiology. So yeah, there are some that are not built out into that degree plan, but again, you can always add those on for your elective courses.
Again, worst case scenario, there are things like minors that can, if you have a very disparate combination of academics. So like, for example, we had an alum, they were a PA. Their major was economics, physician assistant, economics major. They did some work in between to get those prerequisites done. So just keep that in mind. Between advisement with your major as well as with HealthBeat, we usually can figure out a plan of like, maybe you need to consider summer classes if necessary, right? We will try and fit everything that we can, but know that there is always flexibility and there's things that we can work with you guys to make sure that you are hitting those necessary components depending on the profession and what you're trying to do.
And then we have a question in the chat. Do we need to sign up for Handshake before meeting with an academic or major advisor? I'll let you answer that one, Ron.
So no, Handshake is for employment opportunities and the Career Center primarily. Once you are onboarded by the university, you should start getting access to the VAC system. It sounds really funny. You're going to get a lot of acronyms here at UCSD, so just be prepared. So that is the centralized advising for usually the colleges and the majors. And they should give you like a rundown of when you'll get access to the VAC system. And you should have ready access once your Triton accounts are all set up properly. Hope that helps. All right, great questions. Anything else, guys? Please let us know. Can be professions, optometry even. I have a cousin that's an optometrist.
I actually had a quick question concerning like the MD PhD route. Would you guys consider that research experience would be more crucial in that field? Okay,
100%.
right.
100%. MD PhD is its own special beast, I like to call it, because it is essentially almost two admission processes combined. So you're not only applying for the medical portion of the program, but you're also applying for the PhD portion of the program. So what will happen is on secondaries and digital applications, we'll walk you guys through it, but they are going to ask you extensive questions about research and what you've done to do your homework on the PhD program that is part of the MD program, so that they know that you are okay signing up for, you know, X amount of years in addition to medical school. It is kind of a lot of time to ask of an applicant and a student. So they just want to make sure that you are fully versed in the fact that research will be a large component of your life in addition to practice.
Great. Thank you so much. That was helpful, actually.
Yeah, of course.
Ron, do you want to specify the type of research? Because I know that can also sometimes be a question, like what kind of research should I be doing based on, you know, for example, a PhD program?
So with PhD programs, I would say the really beneficial thing is looking for if there are opportunities to be connected to something that will eventually be published or made as a viable journal documents. So one thing that you will notice with PhD applicants in general for MD programs is that they'll say, okay, so I had worked under this researcher, and as part of what I was doing with this researcher, these publications have been published with articles on these specific topics and areas. Given that research is incredibly broad, they don't necessarily distinguish from, okay, so this is, you know, based within viral studies when talking about an epidemic and et cetera, versus, okay, this is, you know, using lab rats to figure out cancer-based research versus we are looking at possible applications of cellular properties that could be used in genetic research, right? Very different things. All of them could potentially provide published articles and publications. That would be the thing that I would be looking at, is what is the opportunities to really get a portion of access to doing the full entirety of a research program, right? And a lot of times that's having hopefully a conversation with the Undergraduate Research Hub, which is a resource for you guys when it comes to research, because they can also help you navigate those conversations with the primary researchers and the assistant researchers for each of those projects. And a lot of times that's how our students first get access to research on campus.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much again. That was really valuable advice.
I actually have a quick question. So I heard that you can do like internship or like small research and get like class credits for it. How does that work, and how can you find out if you can get credit for it or not?
I'll let you answer that one.
All right. So I just recently had to work with this, so it's a little bit more fresh in my memory. We have an academic internships office. So fun thing that people don't realize, almost anything can count for an academic research or internship opportunity, as long as you take the necessary steps to reach out to the office, let them know what the opportunity is, and know the timeline. So AIP, yes, there we go. Thank you, Jade. So AIP is your source for that. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll say, okay, for this to count as academic credit, whatever program you're doing, you need to make sure that there's going to be a faculty member or instructor that's going to sign off on it. And then usually that's working with their office, maybe talking, if it's an employer-based opportunity, probably run it by us to see if we happen to know of any ways to help navigate that process. But I would also start thinking about if this opportunity is related to any of the fields that your instructors are a part of. Sometimes that can be another way. If it's very closely tied to your major, That's another opportunity where you might want to talk to your academic advisor with your major to see if they can either be a point person to refer you to a specific faculty where they might be in alignment with it. And then besides that, AIP on its own just has a ton of listings where they already count for academics. So either any of the above they're more than happy to try and help you guys with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
This is good questions. Good job, guys. Anything else? Come on. Any other pressing ones? How are we on time, by the way? I didn't check.
5 minutes.
Okay. 5 minutes, guys. Rapid fire. Come on. And if you're afraid to unmute, you can always put it in chat.
And if you want to direct message either myself or Ron, feel free to do that. Because I know a couple students have done that.
Always fine. All right, anything else? I'm going to bug you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I see, thank you for the webinar, of course. That's what we're here for, is to get this information out to you. Also, another reminder as far as with all the resources, we'll provide the slides. There are some of the links in chat. And again, on HealthBeat, we also try and link as much as possible so that if you lose it, you'll find it again.
Mm-hmm.
I have one last question. So let's say like I've been thinking of PT for a long time. I've been volunteering at the hospitals and stuff, but I recently got to volunteer at the emergency department. I was like really interested in it. And for this long, I've been thinking both are PT and PA. Are there a lot of students who are like doing prereqs for both and then applying for both PT and PA, or MD and PA? Like, is that a possible thing to do?
I can give what I advise students, and Ron, if you want to as well. So yes, there are students who do that either within the same application cycle or they'll stagger it. This just depends. Again, yes, there are students who will take prerequisites that will align with both programs. I did send you all a chart, so you can, which is a comparative chart, which should help you with understanding kind of the different prerequisites for the different career trajectories that you want to be on. But it's definitely doable. It is doable. The only caveat that I advise my students is that I would prefer my students to focus on one application at a time, because that divided energy can show up on that personal statement or can show up in those interviews. And this isn't easy work. You know, this does take a lot of energy, and of course it's doable, but at the same time, you want to put your best foot forward. So when you're sitting on those interviews, you're completely present, you're completely invested, because in the back of your mind, if you're applying for 2 programs, that may reveal itself, you know, in some of your statements, or maybe within your personal statement, maybe it won't be as strong. So I would say just be wary of that. And we would rather try and help you choose one over the other instead of applying for 2 at a time. But the short answer is yes, you definitely could do that. Ron, I don't know if you had extra advice for that.
The answer, I agree. Yes, prioritize, right? So as far as up until application, a lot of the things have crossover, and that's just with health professions in general. There's going to be a lot of crossover in content, experience, and opportunities. So when you are doing the areas leading up to it, is just making sure to, again, keep extensive notes and being very clear about thinking critically about how these experiences help inform you, especially when you're starting to make the decisions about where you're going to apply and when. That being said, once you get towards the time where you are able to start applying, meet with us for one thing, so that we can help you. But 2, also really consider, out of the 2 or 3 types of application processes you could be going for, do a little research on the differences first, and then see which one that you might feel you want to execute strongly on, and hopefully also know that if you were to go through everything fine with that application and start right away on that profession, you don't have any reservations because of another field, right? do the best you can to get to that point so that you can really push for the one that you feel strongest about. If for some reason you get through that, it isn't successful, but you have all these other options, that might be a good time when you want to say, can I pivot to a different application type? Because maybe they review a certain area of the profession differently. Maybe they weight or approach those experiences differently. And it actually is a better fit for you to try and market yourself for that area now, right? So it's a process. You can work towards both. But we want to try and get you to a point where you feel confident in whatever application you are providing. And usually that comes with narrowing it down a little bit once you get to that point, so it's easier. And then, you know, I've had students work on multiple, and at the end of the day, they end up right before application cycle getting shadowing or direct experience that turns them the other way, for better or worse. You know, I see that all the time, and and that's great because then at least you've solidified it. So pursue both at, you know, if you're really interested, and then really search for those experiences that give you an understanding and kind of behind the curtain. What are the differences in lifestyle? What are the differences in patients and facilities that you're going to be exposed to depending on the health profession? And that usually helps you narrow it down once you're close to application, at least.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's a lot of good advice, so thank you.
And are we at time?
Yeah, we're at 4:01.
Okay.
We made it to time. I'm glad that you all asked questions. They were definitely, I'm sure they helped the others that were on the call as well who didn't ask those questions. We are available to you all for appointments through Handshake. So you should be meeting with us about once a quarter to start. Maybe I would say once a quarter, just to keep updated. And then closer to application, you'll want to meet with us more frequently.
Or join one of the larger events where all of you have the same question. I've done that for like applications, right? That's a very popular one where they all are going like, how do I document this experience? Right. So just keep your eyes out and peeled. And anytime you see those opportunities, please don't hesitate to jump in.
All right, everyone. You're all very welcome. Thank you for being here today, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, thank you guys for presenting.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is pretty much the end. So I think Amira, we can just end the presentation now, right?
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.